Well, welcome. We're going to do some circles introduction. So the first thing we're going to talk about is how to name circles. And then after that, we're going to talk about, well, what is the radius of a circle? What is the chord of a circle? A diameter and circumference. Some of these I think you are familiar with, but we're going to go over all of them anyway. So how do you name a circle? A circle's name is all based on the center. So if there was a dot here in the center, and this one had an A, and maybe there's a dot here in the center, and this one has a B. Maybe there's a dot here, a center point here, and it has a C. We're going to name them based on the centers of the circle. Okay, so this first one has a name of circle A, and you write a little circle symbol, and you write the letter A, and that's circle A. And this is circle B. Okay, this is circle C. It's really not more complicated than that. That's all you got to do. Okay, so that's how you name a circle. It's all based on the center of the circle. Okay. The next thing is a radius. Radius is a segment with endpoints at the center and on the circle. So it's two endpoints. One of them is on the center, and one of them is on the actual circle. So here's the center. You pick a point on the circle. This is a radius. Okay, so in this case, radius would be segment AB, for example. So AB in this picture is a radius. You might want to copy that picture down. Or I can draw another one. How about this segment right here? We call it AC. Segment AC, that's also a radius. Anything from the center to a point on the circle is a radius. Segments with endpoints at the center and on the circle. A chord. This word is chord. Don't say chord. This word is chord. A segment with both ends on the circle. So any point or any segment that connects two points that are on the circle is called a chord. So you can draw a picture. AB is a chord. Or maybe you got one over here. And DF is a chord. Okay, so copy that picture somewhere near the word chord, something like that. All right, moving on. You probably know what a diameter is, but you probably didn't know that a diameter is a type of chord because it has endpoints that are on the circle, but it also goes through the center of the circle. So here's the center. You got endpoints that are on the circle. Okay, so this would be considered a diameter. I wonder if I can go ahead and connect these with a straight line. Diameter, like that. This is also a diameter, this one, because it has endpoints that are on the circle and it goes through the center of the circle. Okay, so DF is a segment that is a diameter, or AG, whatever you want to name these under them, I don't care. Okay, but that's an example of a diameter. All right, and then last one, the one we're going to use the most today, is circumference. Circumference is the length around the circle. In other words, it's perimeter. Okay, so it's the distance all the way around. And notice I said length. So this is going to be in like inches or yards or meters or kilometers. Okay, these are all lengths, not areas like when we did the last section, centimeters squared or yards squared or any of that. It's just centimeters or just yards. So how do you find circumference? Circumference can be found using this formula pi times d. You might recall from a song that I may have showed you before. Okay, you can use pi d. Maybe you learned in a previous class 2 pi r, and that's fine. You can use that. I'm not going to use 2 pi r, but you could. And the reason that is 2 pi r is two radiuses, or radii is actually what you say when it's plural. So 2 radii is the same as 1 diameter. So if you took out the d and replace it with 2 and r, and just rearrange it a little bit, you get the same formula. My personal preference, though, is to use circumference equals pi times diameter. So you won't see me use 2 pi r. Nope. I'm probably going to use pi d mostly. But you use whichever one you want. It really doesn't matter. All right, so let's move on. Here's a summary of everything we just talked about. How do you name a circle? Well, it's all named based on the center, whatever letters at the center of the circle. You just write a circle symbol, which is just a circle with a little dot in the middle. So circle A. Segments with endpoints on the center and on the circle is called a radius. So it goes from the center to the outside. It's a chord is just connecting any 2 points that are on the circle. And a certain kind of chord that goes through the center is called a diameter. And circumference is the length around the circle. So you might get some other questions that are where you're trying to figure out some lengths or some radiuses or something like that, but radii, I should say. But I'm going to let you try to figure this out. So I'm going to focus on circumference. In this picture, I want to see if you can find the circumference. Okay, so first thing you need to do is think about, well, what do you need for circumference? Pi times diameter. Well, in this case, we need to figure out what is diameter. What are we going to put in place of d? We don't have the diameter, which is this chord that goes through the center. Okay, so you might notice this is a right triangle, and a right triangle with 2 sides given means that we can use Pythagorean theorem to figure out the third side. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and use Pythagorean theorem. A and B are the legs that touch the right angle. 5 squared plus 12 squared equals x squared, this side being x. And you can do your Pythagorean theorem and figure out the rest of this if you don't know how to do it. I'll go ahead and show you. Which means that if you take the square root of 169, you're going to get a regular x. Squares and square roots cancel each other out, so you get a regular x. And the square root of 169 is 13. That means that this length, this diameter, is 13. Now, if we were going to write our answers in what we call exact, sometimes questions will ask you to put your answers in exact, then that means we don't actually multiply by the pi here. And this would be your answer, well, with the units. We're in centimeters, so I should say 13 pi centimeters. I know it's a little weird, maybe a little unconventional, something you're not quite used to. But you can go ahead and do that if you wanted to. Now, if you want to figure out how much is this worth, 13, if it would let me do that, for some reason it's not letting me. Huh. Well, you could take 13 and actually times it by pi and figure out what is the answer going to be. Okay, moving on to the next question. Now here, same idea, you want to figure out circumference. So you got to take pi times diameter. In this case, we don't know what the diameter is. So you got to figure it out. Diameter will go all the way across. Now, you might look at this and think that 8 is the diameter, but it's not going through the center of the circle. And neither is 6. And it's not even its longest length. The diameter is going to be the longest length we can create in a circle. So we have to draw the diameter, and we would do this by connecting the diagonal. You see that? The diagonal of the rectangle happens to be the same thing as the diameter of the circle. Okay, so if we can figure out the diagonal of the rectangle, which maybe you notice this rectangle right here cut in half makes this triangle, which I outlined very poorly there, but you can figure out the hypotenuse by using Pythagorean theorem just like we did before. So we're going to end up figuring out diameter by doing Pythagorean theorem again. 8 squared plus 6 squared equals x squared. Now maybe you're a quick student and you happen to catch that this is a 3, 4, 5 triangle, and you can skip right to the end there. It's cool, go for it if you know how to do that. Otherwise, you have to work it all out and you come up with 10. 10 is the diameter, which is the same as this diagonal. So this is going to be 10 pi. I'm just going to switch the order. Typically, we'll put 10 before the pi. We'll put the number before the pi. This is in feet. So this is your answer if I was asking for exact. Now, if I was asking for an approximation, or you want to actually figure out, well, how long is that? You're not quite sure about 10 pi, how long that's supposed to be. Take 10 times the pi button on your calculator at 3.14. Use a few more decimal places if you can, but it's approximately 31.4 feet. Okay, now that's approximation because it keeps going on forever and ever, but we're not going to sit here and write that for the rest of our lives. All right, so there's your answer. And that's it. So good luck.